again, everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode of Road Trip After Hours. I'm your host, MadMacDavis, along with my WWE Hall of Famer co-host, Teddy Long. Hey, Teddy, how you doing, brother?
Hey, I'm doing good today, man. And first thing before we kick off here, let's put everybody.
Road Trip After Hours. Recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Here does not do podcasts. Okay, I'm gonna let y'all know that right now. So to have him to come on and be with me and Mac is certainly an honor, man, and I certainly really appreciate it.
First of all, our guest is a WWE Hall of Famer himself. He is none other than Mr. JBL, John Bradshaw Layfield. Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I want to tell you something. Teddy Long is one of the best people on the entire planet, but he's also the cheapest person on the entire planet.
Hey, Patrick, grab some Krabby Patties and come on over. It's time for Road Trip After Hours. With host MadMacDavis and WWE Hall of Famer, Teddy Crab Legs Long. Yay!
We love all the wrestling fans, right, Teddy, baby?
Exactly, Jimmy. And before we go, man, you make sure you say hello to the Hulkster and let him know, man, good luck with everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Tony Chimmel, and welcome to Road Trip After Hours. Please welcome your host, Mac Davis, and WWE Hall of Famer, Teddy Long.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to an all-new episode of Road Trip After Hours. I'm your host, Mac Davis, along with my WWE Hall of Famer co-host, Mr. Teddy Long. Hey, Teddy, how you doing, brother?
Well, you know what? As you was introducing me, the funny thing is, you see how we got through that introduction without any problem? It's amazing when we have Bill Apter hooked up to us. We're always having problems.
That's because he's always got those bad jokes, Teddy.
Hey, man, good afternoon, everybody. And like you said, it's another new episode of Road Trip After Hours, and we got a real special guest today. Yes. Young man that's in the building that I consider is the GOAT. You know, when you get our age, Greg, they call us the GOAT. So, Greg Gagne is here with us, world renowned from the AWA in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Am I saying that right?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, I guess he is, Greg.
Yes, it is, Teddy. The AWA was, their offices were in Minneapolis, but, our territory ran from Winnipeg, and eventually we teamed up. They put our TV show in St. Louis. So from Winnipeg to St. Louis to the West Coast is where we covered. So we had a huge territory to cover.
Now, for those of you who are not aware of Greg Gagne, let me give you a quick update, kind of like a little brief introduction of him. He is the son of WWE Hall of Famer Vern Gagne, and no surprise that he ended up in the wrestling business himself later on, especially in the AWA, forming a tag team with Jim Brunzell, known as the High Flyers. They became the AWA World Tag Team Champions, and realizing later on, Greg went into singles competition against names like King Kong Brody, which would have been, of course, for a lot of other people, Bruiser Brody. He also faced Adrian Adonis, current hitting, Ronnie Garvin, Larry Zbyszko. You could probably name off a ton more because there's a bunch of them there. And our guest today, as Teddy mentioned, is none other than Greg Gagne. And Greg, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, those names bring back some memories, and Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens, Pat Patterson, Bobby Heenan, Jack Lanzon, and Blackjack and Bobby Duncombe. And they were a devastating team. I mean, the talent that was in the AWA was second to none. And from top to bottom on the card, there were all main event people in there.
I'm curious, Greg, your father, having been so well known in the wrestling business and creating so many stars himself, when you were growing up, did he kind of prepare you for wrestling, or was that just assumed that you would become a wrestler, or was he totally against that idea?
No, I was always, I wanted to be a pro football player is what I wanted to do. But, from the time I was a little kid, we'd always wrestle together.
Yep.
As I got older, he would move the furniture down in the living room, and I came home, I was playing, I started my career in football at University of Minnesota. And Murray Warmath, the Big Ten then wasn't a big throwing team, and I could throw the ball pretty well. And it had all big guys. And the quarterback they had, he was Ray Stevens' brother, or Sandy Stevens' brother, Ray Stevens, who was about 6'3". He went about 220. Our fullback was Jim Carter, who ended up replacing Ray Nitschke in Green Bay as a linebacker. He was the fullback at 6'4", 235, 240. We had Barry Mayer, another running back, at another 225, 230. And he had big, huge linemen. So he moved me to a cornerback. And it was very interesting because Murray had a philosophy. Minnesota kids, he tried to get them on as walk-ons. So we only had one Minnesota kid on scholarship, a kid named Jim Wright, who was a great running back from Edina High School. And in our first scrimmage, when we went to Minnesota, we had all the Minnesota kids. Jeff's the only one got the scholarship, and we had Brenzel. He was a running back. They moved him to a receiver. And Jeff, when they moved me to defense and him to defense in spring, we won the spring game. We beat the guys that were on scholarship every week, but then he moved us to defense. So they had two calls. The safety would make the call, and Jeff was the safety. I was the cornerback. The safety call was Sally, which meant Sally, the safety, came up and broke up the end runs. Well, he'd call Cora all the time, which was the cornerback, coming up and breaking up the end runs. So we're in a scrimmage. He calls Cora. I come up. Jim Carter, the fullback, has the football. All I remember is him running over me and running for a touchdown. So Murray Warmath, he had his southern accent. Run that play again. Come on, Gagne. You gotta get that tackle. You gotta make that tackle. So the next time I go up and shit, I'm gonna hit him this time. So I hit him and bam, I roll over and he steps on me and he falls down, but he's still got about 6-7 yards. Hey, Gagne, run that play again. Damn it. You gotta make those tackles. So I thought, oh hell. Okay, so I come flying up and I hit him right in the thigh with my helmet. And the next thing I knew, I was on the sidelines on one knee with Jim Marshall, who was the trainer. And he says, hey, Greg, come on, we got to go in. Practice is over. And I said, but look at the elephants and the clowns out there. And he said, you better get in. That was my first concussion.
Well, so your dad, did he encourage you to get into wrestling eventually?
No, he never really encouraged it. But, you know, he always taught me amateur wrestling.
Yeah.
He said, you're going to have problems and you're going to have to defend yourself. So from the time I was a little guy, we'd wrestle in the living room. So when I went out to Wyoming, we had winter football. So we came home after the break, and he says, come on, let's go downstairs. You know, and I'm 19, 20 years old at the time. And my mom, oh, gee, do you have to do it, Vern? Can't you just stop that? Come on down. We're going to go down and wrestle. So we go down, and as usual, he's frustrating me, and he's got me down, holding me down. So I gave him an elbow in the nose. And when I did, he's cracked my ribs. So I went, oh, Jesus, Dad. So now I got to go back to Wyoming for football. And I walk in there, and I'm all wrapped up, and the coach said, well, what the hell happened to you? And I said, well, I have to wrestle my dad in the living room, and it got a little out of hand, and he cracked my ribs. And of course, they're laughing their ass off at me, but you know, but no, but he always taught me, you know, amateur wrestling and moves and how to protect myself. And then in 1972, he was sponsoring Ken Patera for the Olympics, and Ken was going to be a professional wrestler afterwards.
Yep.
And so I said, well, Dad, I'd like to try out for wrestling. He says, what makes you think you can wrestle? I said, well, shit, I've been wrestling my whole life with you. You know. So then I got Jim. I ended up transferring to Wyoming, but he was at Minnesota. So I called him up. He was playing semi-pro football, you know, not making any money or anything. I said, hey, Jim, why don't you come out for wrestling? You know, my dad's got a camp going. Yeah, you know, I don't know anything about wrestling. I said, well, I don't know a lot about it either, but, you know, let's give it a shot. So Jim came, and then Rick Flair was a friend of ours from college, and Rick joined us. And then Vern also one of the coaches on the Olympic team knew of Khazar Vasiri, the Iron Sheik.
Yes.
And my mom gave him that name, the Iron Sheik, by the way. And he was coming to the camp, and then Wahoo McDaniels had a friend of his, Bob Bruggers, who'd played football at Minnesota, and it was with Denver and San Diego. And Bob was a little older. He was in his early 30s, so it was a little harder on him.
Yep.
And Vern had this old barn with one light bulb over the ring. And we trained from October 1st until March 1st. And we went 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. And it was the hardest thing any of us had ever done.
You know, you during your time in wrestling, you actually wrestled quite a few big names. One of them being Bruiser Brody, or at that time King Kong Brody. For you, walking in the ring with Bruiser Brody had to be an experience because not a lot of guys have the background to say I wrestled Brody. You have. What was it like in the ring?
I fought Brody.
Yeah,
Brody.
you
Didn't wrestle him much. My first experience with him is Jim and I were the AWA tag team champions,
yep.
And we were brought over to Japan for a tag team tournament. And the night before, we're in Salt Lake City in a cage match, and I got thrown over the top rope by Jerry Blackwell into the cage, and I twisted my knee. God, it burned like a son of a bee. I woke up in the morning and it was all swollen up, and then we have to fly to Japan for this big tag team tournament. And God, my knee is all swollen up. So we get on the early flight out of Salt Lake to LA, and the flight attendants gave me ice for my knee. And then we had an hour and a half layover in LA. Flight attendants gave me ice all the way to Tokyo. Got to Tokyo, had to get on a plane to Sapporo, iced the knee, we got picked up 19 hours in the air. Cab picked us up. We had to get dressed in the cab. We had to go right in the ring when we got there. And we won a match that night in about 15 minutes. The next night, we wrestle Jumbo Sruta and Tenaru. That's our first round match in the tournament. There was 4 teams. And we won that match in about 53 minutes. And my knee is killing me. The next night, we have Giant Bubba and Dory Funk Jr. Dory was the world champion. We wrestled them for 40-some minutes, and we won that match.
Wow.
Now we get to the third match or fourth match, and we're with King Kong Brody and Stan the Lariat Hansen. And they are like idols in Japan.
Yes. So
we're in the corner, and I'm talking to Jim like I'm talking to you. Or Jim's got his back to Brody and Hansen. They come out, and the people just erupt. They come storming in the room. I got hit with the cowbell. Jim got hit with the chain. Brody had out of the ring we go. They run us through the people into a wall, hit us with a fire extinguisher. We're both cut up. And we're battling back to the ring. And as we're going back to the ring, Hansen doesn't see too well with his glasses off. And this little Japanese guy got up and his chair fell down. So I picked it up and I threw it like a Frisbee, and I hit Stan right on the nose.
Ooh.
Exploded his frickin' nose. So we wrestled with them for about 40 minutes like this. And Brody had Jim, and I came off the top rope and caught Brody with a good elbow, and he went down to his knees. And when he went down, I was standing there, and I saw Brunzell go flying over the top rope. And I'm looking at him, Brody from his knees bear hugs me with my arms trapped. And I'm like this. And here comes Hansen across the ring with the lariat.
Oh, no.
That was the last thing I remember.
Stan Hansen did have the best lariats in the business, and the only person behind him.
You didn't get hit by it.
And the other person that comes to mind with the great lariat is JBL. Those two could throw a lariat, but Stan Hansen, I remember every time I watched him do that, I thought he was killing the guy, and he was.
Yeah, right. He was.
Yes.
Oh, he was. Yeah, they were machines, both of them. And then we met them in the finals. We won all of the rest of our matches. We met them in the finals, and luckily we won that one.
Very
and
cool.
it kind of really established us. So then Brody came into Minneapolis, and his first match was with Sergeant Slaughter. Place was sold out, St. Paul Civic Center, 19,000 people. And halfway through the match, Brody walks out of the ring. And he goes by Wally Carbo, and Vern says, "Hey, how do you like that?" "Well, what are you doing?" He didn't say much. And the next time he's wrestling Jerry Blackwell. Same thing. Walks out of the ring. "How do you like that one?" So, "What's wrong with you?" He says, I don't want to be with any of these guys. I want to work with Greg."
That's,
Are you kidding me? No way.
That's a nice vote of confidence right there. Teddy,
Yeah,
you were trying to pop in a while ago and I cut you off. I didn't mean to. Go ahead.
No, I wasn't really trying. I was just agreeing with you when you were saying that Brody was killing them. Yeah, he was killing them. I don't even really believe Brody knew how to work.
Brody just knew how to fight.
Everything was for real. Everything was for real with him.
It was. Boy, you had to fight him, and that's why he liked wrestling with me. He said,
Yeah.
I didn't wrestle him in single match. I wrestled him in tag matches, but he was a heck of an athlete too.
And you know something about that too, Vern. I like that because that's how you learn. That's how you learn. It don't get no better than that.
Okay, Freddie. You're calling me Vern. I'm going to call you Freddie.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry,
I heard
Greg.
that.
That's okay.
Hey, look here. We are running out of time. I could talk to you all day about old school stuff. Two things real quick before we get to the event that all three of us will be taking a part of later this year. I do want to ask you if you have any good road stories. Greg, anything you can share with us? Good road story?
Oh, God. Road stories. I can tell you, I can tell you a dandy here. Remember the guy named Mad Dog Vachon?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Mad Dog was a smaller version of Brody. But you, scratch you, hit you so freaking hard, So we had a small plane that they usually took the top tier of the card on. It held pilot and a co-pilot. The co-pilot was either Ray Stevens or Nick Bockwinkel. The pilot, they trained them to land the plane in case we had an emergency. And then we had 4 seats behind them and then 2 in the back. So you had 7 wrestlers and the pilot. And it was usually the main event and the semifinal would be on there. So Mad Dog's near the end of his career. And we're going to Omaha. And Mad Dog was always like to play cribbage.
Yes.
And I'm sitting across the aisle from him, and he would just kind of rock, and he wouldn't talk much. And we're playing, and everything's quiet. We're about halfway to Omaha, and all of a sudden he goes, "Greg," scares the crap out of you when he does that. Jesus, what? He says, "I am meeting my fiance's family tonight, and I want to wrestle early on the card. Will you ask the promoter, Joe Dusick, if I could wrestle early?" So I said, "Yeah, okay. When we get there, we'll take care of that." So we get there, and Mad Dog, I asked Joe, and he says, "Yeah, we'll put him on the second match here." And Mad Dog, usually before he went in the ring, you'd see him over in the corner in the locker room. He'd chug down a pint of whiskey. So he chugs down this pint of whiskey, and I see him pop something in his mouth.
Uh-oh.
And he heads out to the arena, and he's back in the locker room in about 3 minutes. I said, "Mad Dog, what happened?" "I killed that kid." And I'm going, Jesus. So he gets undressed, and Joe Dusick, we had separate locker rooms, and Mad Dog is with us, and we got 2 cases of beer in there, and he sits down. We're talking and playing cards, and Mad Dog's sitting next to it. There's his towel on, and I said, "Hey, don't you have to meet the family tonight?" He says, "I'll go when I want to go." Now, Mad Dog's probably in his 50s at this time, early 50s. Yep. And it was, okay. And he's drinking a beer, and we're on the last match, and there's intermission in between. So we're there for about hour and 15 minutes before we're going to wrestle, and Mad Dog still hasn't taken a shower. And he's drinking the beers. Oh, Jesus. So we go out and we wrestle for about 45 minutes and came back, and we drive out to the airport, the Omaha airport, and we're waiting. And there's no Mad Dog. Everybody's on the plane. So here comes the cab up, and Mad Dog gets out of the cab, and he's kind of wobbling, and he's with Steve Olszanowski. And I said, Steve, where have you guys been? What the hell happened? Well, he wanted to meet, we had to go meet the family at the restaurant, and Mad Dog had ribs, and he had barbecue sauce on his shirt, and he had it in his beard. And I said, Jesus Christ. He said, well, he drank that pint of whiskey, and Brunzell gave him a pill because he had to drive to Montreal the next day. He said, don't take it till the morning until you make the trip all the way there. Well, he took it that night. So apparently Adrian Adonis gave him something to calm him down. Whatever that was, I don't know. So he said, well, he was drinking a lot of wine, and he drank, I don't know how many beers, and he had that pint of whiskey, and he took that speed and whatever else Adrian gave him to calm him down. And we had to stop, and he picked up another pint of whiskey at the liquor store, and he drank that in the cab.
Oh, God.
Jesus Christ, Steve. So we get in the plane, and we put him in the back of the plane, and he's next to Adrian. And they didn't get along that well. So, but Mad Dog he's kind of rocking back there, and we're playing cards, and all of a sudden the plane goes boom, and it moves.
Oh no. And
the pilot starts yelling. We actually thought that another plane hit us and took the tail off.
Wow.
And he says, who opened the door? And Mad Dog had opened the door at 6,000 feet.
Oh, God.
And he's hanging out of it. And all you can see is the back of him. And he turned on and go, it's so peaceful, I feel like flying tonight. So apparently he told Adrian, he kept telling him, I feel like jumping out of the plane tonight. And Adrian said, well, go ahead and do it.
Oh, Jesus.
So, right. So he's got this, the plane, the stairs were held on by two chains.
Yep.
And then the top window would go up, and that was locked in. And he had the chain around his neck, and he was hanging out there backwards, looking at the stars. It's so peaceful, I feel like flying tonight. The pilot's yelling at us to grab him. We say, he's going to jump. We're not going with him. You got to get him in. So now we got to make an emergency landing in Waterloo, Iowa. And
I've been there.
We get him back in his seat, and the door's hanging down. So the pilot says, now guys, when we come down, we're gonna have to line it on one wheel. And if we hit wrong, we're gonna flip over. So get in a crash position.
Oh,
right. So we're going, holy shit, we're all bent over. We look down at the runway. The runway is being foamed. They got fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars with all the red lights going. On the other runway, they got two Ozark Airlines being held up for us.
wow.
So down we come, and this pilot was so good. He put that thing in on one wheel, and we came to a stop, and it's dead silent in there. And all of a sudden you can hear Mad Dog floundering around in the back. We turn around, and from the door being open, the foam had come in, and he's got foam all over him. Peeling it off. He gets out of the plane, and he starts walking across the runways to the other runways where they're now releasing the Ozark planes. So the pilot says, hey, go get him. And the police come out, and they said, what's that guy doing? We said, they said, go get him. They said, is that Mad Dog Vachon? We said, yeah. We said, go get him. We said, you go get him. Just open the door at 6,000 feet, try to kill us all. So Steve Olszanowski finally ran over to try to get him. And about that time, these jets were being released, and we're pretty close to that runway. And when we finally get to him, he turns around and whacks both of us with an open hand. And we said, shit. So we walked back. And about that time, the plane went by, and it actually blew all three of us over from the jets.
Wow. So that's a great story.
The police came running by, and then they were trying to get him handcuffed. They can't get his arms back. And he's, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you guys when I get out of here. So finally got him back to the plane, and the police said, okay, they've got two options. We'll either throw him in jail or you guys can take him back. And he's looking at us. If you don't take me back, I'm going to kill you all. So we put him in behind the pilot. We put two straps over him, and he's rocking like this all the way back to Minneapolis, telling us he was going to kill us when he got back. When we finally landed, the plane opened, the doors opened. We all bailed out and left him there with the pilot.
That's a great story. That's one of my favorite stories I've heard.
That's a good one. That's good.
And that's a true story.
Greg, let's talk real quick about the FanFest coming up in St. Louis before we run out of time here. It's a big event. FanFest 2. All three of us were going to be there, and we were all three there last year. I'm looking for another great event. How about you, Greg?
Oh, I am too. I know it's FanFest is what, 10 a.m. in the morning till 5?
Correct. Oh, that's on that Saturday. And of course, on the Friday night, we have Bill Apter with his one-man show. That starts off the event on Friday night. Then Saturday all day. I don't think incredible. I'm
coming in on Friday night. I think I got a 6 o'clock flight in the morning on Saturday.
Well, you're not missing much if you don't see the show. No, I'm just kidding, Bill.
No,
we love
you're
you.
Right. You're absolutely right. Bill does a great job. I've never seen it. He tells me about it. Yep. And according to him, it's fantastic. And I'm sure.
Of course.
Of course it is.
Yeah, tell us about some of the names that'll be there, Greg. I know there's some other names that are going to be there, not just us three. There's going to be plenty of other people there.
Well, it's fantastic. Cowboy Bob Orton.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
Stan Hansen, one of the ones that we talked about earlier, will be there as well.
You got Sergeant Slaughter, the Rock and Roll Express.
Yes.
Dan Severn.
Yes.
Phenomenal wrestler.
Yes,
amateur wrestler, pro wrestler. Great guy.
Actually, Greg, you and I had a chance to see him at the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame just last year. He was there, and we had a chance to see him during that weekend, which is another great weekend of the year. You need to make plans.
I met him up in New York at a Hall of Fame up there, and just a great guy. Tommy Rich, Steve Kern, the Glow Girls would be there.
Yes.
Brian Blair and Jim Brunzell, the Killer Bees, and Brunzell and Gagne, the High Flyers, if we can get along together. Barb Goodish, that's from King Kong Brody's wife, and she's a phenomenal lady.
Sweet lady, yes, she is.
Judy Martin, Lani Kai, Medusa. Teddy Long will be there.
Who?
Who's that guy?
You know what? I was trying to remember.
He's that peanut head guy.
He's a fantastic guy. And then my good friend Tito Santana and Jimmy Hart and a whole lot more. This is a fan fest. If you're a wrestling fan, you don't want to miss this one.
And that's May 17th. Yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And we're at the Aviator Hotel and Ballroom.
Aviator Hotel and Ballroom.
Aviator.
Yes. And we were, like I said, last year we were there. This was their first event last year. It was incredible. For their first event, it was a great turnout. This year we have many more names than we had last year. So this should be really good. You need to make plans for this. This is in St. Louis for the SICW Fan Fest 2. You can get those tickets by going to SICW.org. And please do so. We'd love to see you there. I know that Teddy and I will be there with the table. I know Greg will be there with the table. We'll be walking around and watching the festivities, and we all look forward to seeing you there. Greg, I appreciate you taking the time to come see us today. I know that we talked about doing 10 minutes, but you had so many great stories. We just let you roll.
This is a short one for me. I was on one for the other night for 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah, ours won't every day. Never more than 30 minutes on this program.
All right, well then cut me off because I can go on forever. Well, Greg, fans out there shouldn't. Herb's got us coming in at 10:15 on that morning, and the thing starts at 10. And it goes to what, 5 o'clock? Then they have the Hall of Fame at 7.
Correct.
Which will be at that, and we can't miss that one. They have wrestling matches after that.
Correct.
And then he's got us flying out at 6 o'clock the next morning.
You sound like Teddy and I. We're all about the same thing. Last year they forgot us at the airport. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Herb.
But here's the thing, Greg. I'm kind of with you because last time they had us flying out so early, but we're 25 miles from the airport. You know what I mean? So you got to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to get to the airport. So I told Mac, I think the thing we need to do is have them book us a couple of flight rooms back in St. Louis at the airport. And that Saturday night after the show, we just go back to St. Louis so we can, don't have to get up so early and fly home.
Why don't we do this? why don't we go from the FanFest and the wrestling matches out to the airport, and we'll just have a few drinks together until the flights leave in the morning.
I could fly out that night.
You don't need a hotel room.
No.
Well,
that's old days.
Come on, Teddy. You used to be able to do that.
I can't do it no more.
Neither can I.
All right,
Welcome
guys.
to the world, though.
We're out of time. I wish we could keep
All
going, but I
guys.
got to cut you off because they're going to cut us off if we don't. I'm Mad.
Thanks for having me on. I
Before you
appreciate
go,
it.
hey, Greg, I just want to say thank you so much, man, for coming on with me and Mac. Thank you, man.
Anytime. You guys do a great job, and I've heard a lot of great things about your podcast.
I was going to ask you one more thing. Greg, do you have a podcast? I keep thinking I've heard you do a podcast, or you do.
I have one with Magnum TA.
Magnum TA. Where is that
found? What is it? Straight Talk with the Boss, Magnum TA, and Greg Gagne. And we're on YouTube, and I don't know what else, but we've been doing it for about 8 weeks, and it's growing good, and we have a lot of fun on it. So look it up.
I certainly will. And it's something that I just saw recently. So I will actually, after we finish this recording, I'll probably go watch an episode.
Hey, one other thing. God, I didn't talk about Power Town. Give me 1 minute.
Sure.
We started, Steve Rosenthal, who did our old Remco toys back in the 80s, called me one day and he said, let's get back in the toy business. I said, well, the only way is let's represent the people that started this industry back in the 50s. Our first action figures that came out called the Ultras. They're nice and tall. Everybody says the best on the market. We had Luthez and Vern Gagne, King Kong Brody, Stan Hansen, Magnum TA, and Kerry Von Erich. Sold out of them.
Yes.
And now we got the Remco line coming out. And go to powertownwrestling.com and take a look at those. And you can get the pre-orders. They're still open until April 8th. Don't miss this opportunity.
I have seen those figures. You had one of them at the show in New York last year. You brought a sample. I think it may have been a prototype, maybe, or something, but it was a really good looking figure.
Well, Barb and I she's going to bring some of Brody, and I'm going to bring some of Vern down there.
Very good. Very cool. Good. All right, guys, we're out of time. I'm MadMacDavis. That's WWE Hall of Famer Teddy Long and our special guest, Greg Gagne.
We'll see you next week. Whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
See you later, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.